neurodivergents are everywhere, but I think there are certain places and industries where they're more accepted than others, and where they can use their talents much more than others. And I think we should also realize that it might not even work in industries where you don't think of. Like, I know a very, very good UX writer who is dyslexic, and you would think, how can that work too? But that's possible. If people really put their best efforts, and if that's a career made for them, then neurodiversity is not going to stand in the way. You'll just use it in the right way to help you instead of stopping you.
Welcome to the Team Amplifier podcast. I'm your host, Byron Summerdahl. Here you'll be inspired by industry leaders who build flourishing tech teams. Stay tuned and prepare to be amplified.
3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, today we are with Anita Kalmane-Boot. I probably butchered your name. I'm sorry, Anita. But Anita's a writer turned Scrum Master and Agile coach. She fits right in with our crowd as tech leaders, and she really understands how to help development teams flourish, especially in one specific area that we're going to be talking about today, which I'm so excited about. It's neurodiversity. So if you're not familiar with that term, we're going to explain it in a few minutes, and it will be really eye-opening, I think, especially if this is your first dive into this world. And if you're a tech leader and you have any number of team members, you very likely have people on your team that would fall into this world or are in this world. It's good to get to know it, and it's good to learn how to help people flourish in all these different categories. Anita, can you just tell us about who you are and where you come from and where you've been?
Thanks for having me at first. I'm super excited to talk about neurodiversity. As you can hear, I'm not American. I'm based in Europe on the border between Netherlands and Germany. And I have been working as a Scrum Master Agile coach for the last 7 years. Before that, did a bunch of things which have to do a lot with writing. When I'm not helping my developers to succeed in writing great code, I am talking a lot about neurodiversity. And that's what I will be doing here today.
Awesome. Anita, I want to start off with just hearing about what kind of books you've been reading lately. I always love to hear about what kinds of books and ideas have been making an impact on people. So what have you been reading lately?
I'll tell you the last book I bought. I haven't had time to read in the last few months, but I just bought the book called Couples That Work by Jennifer Petriglieri. Very sorry for mispronouncing her surname. And the book was suggested by somebody on LinkedIn, and it's about if you have two people in the couple, so a man and a woman and a woman, doesn't matter, but you have two people who both are working and they also have a family. How do you balance it so it's not that one needs to do more than other at home while they both want to make careers? I'm super excited to start reading this book. My husband started and he said it's great. So I want to recommend it to people who notice you might have struggles with balancing how much you do at home versus how is your career going. Maybe that book might change your life. Couples That Work.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that. I should probably read it too. Maybe I should get my wife to read it with me.
I'll send you a link.
Awesome. We'll put the link in the show notes so everybody can get that. And we'll also put a link in the show notes to your LinkedIn so people can connect with you there. So Anita, I know you've been in the industry for a while. You've been leading and working with teams for a while, several years. Surely you have made at least one mistake in all of those times. And so this is confession time. So step into my confession booth. Tell us about some embarrassing mistake that you've made as a tech leader and prove to us you're actually a human being.
So, as I said, I worked in Europe. It's a very multicultural country. And it was just recently that I made this embarrassing mistake of mixing countries which sound very similar to each other, but I'm supposed to know where my colleagues come from. And instead of saying country A, I said country B, and that's exactly the country every single other person mixes. So it's very sensitive subject to those people. And I was like, I'll say the right one. And of course I said the wrong one. And so I immediately needed to apologize to them and say, hey, I actually do know where you're from. It was just a stupid mistake. And I was like, oh, well, I did it again. Yeah.
Oh, you're in good company. You know, before I started living in Central America, or being in Central America as much as I am, I I used to think that most of this area was Mexico.
Oh my God.
And so any Hispanic food was Mexican
no.
food to me. And I was I was dating my now wife, who is from Honduras, and we had some food, and I told her that I love Mexican food.
You're still alive.
I'm still married.
And you're still married.
Yeah. So but in the United States, I think we have a reputation for being a bit geographically challenged, and we don't always know about the globe around us. And so I have an excuse, not really, but anyway, yeah, I feel you. I know where you're coming from.
Thanks for sharing.
So yeah, we're all human here. So, okay, what is neurodiversity?
Good question, and I'm happy we're starting with it. So we really set it on the right foot. So it depends how you explain it, how I explain it. Neurodiversity is a way how our brains function. For most of people, majorities, the brains function in a certain way, and that's around 80% of the population. 15 to 20% brains function different way. I'm not saying they're better, they're worse, it's just different. It's like you have a certain eye color. You have less people who have red hair versus people who have brown hair or blonde hair or something like that. Most of people in the world are heterosexual, but you have loads of other sexual orientations. It's the same as neurodiversity. Around 80% of world population are what we call neurotypicals, and around 50 to 20 are what we call neurodivergent. And that's a very big, broad umbrella with loads of different diagnoses under there. Some of them you might be familiar with. So if I say autism or ADHD, that's something people have heard, but there are also diagnoses which are less known. So that's why I'm saying it's a big umbrella.
It really is a massive umbrella, and one that I think that we're probably constantly learning about. Brain science is getting deeper and deeper and finding more evidence of things, and also as a human race, we're just getting to know each other and ourselves even better. So I'm glad that we're uncovering some of these things that have probably been with us as a human race for a really long time, and giving them names. Sometimes that helps, giving people a way to understand themselves and others. That helps.
It definitely helps knowing you're not the only one.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, so I'll out myself a little bit. I remember getting a diagnosis for ADHD in my 20s. I felt, I don't know, it was weird. I felt liberated. I felt that like, now I know myself. Now I know why all these different things were happening. Now I know why I'm different in these different ways. And so it felt great to get some knowledge about myself.
And it's also, for a lot of people, not for everybody, but for a lot of people getting diagnosis, it kind of explains there is nothing to fix you, because you cannot fix the way your brains work. It's just acknowledging, hey, my brain works different way. Let me accept and find how to live in a world which was not made for me, basically.
Yeah. Right. And it's actually, what I learned also is that it's not something that I need to fix.
Yeah.
It's not something that's wrong with me. It's a difference. I have different abilities than other people. And I liked what you said just now. It's not so much that there's something wrong with me. It's that the world around me just wasn't made for me. So if you have a car that is able to drive in any direction, but you give them a road that's only straight, then eventually you're going to want to turn the wheel and turn the car somewhere. But if the track that you're on only allows you to go straight, then it gets really frustrating, and you feel like you need to be liberated. And then vice versa.
Another good example I give is the world is not made for people in wheelchairs, but it doesn't. Most of people in wheelchairs will never be able to walk. So does it mean we should stop adapting it? No, we should make the whole world available, no matter if you have a wheelchair or not. And if you have a building and you install there a lift, you're not only helping people in wheelchair, you're helping pregnant people, you're helping somebody with heavy luggage, you're helping somebody who just had an operation, somebody who is tired. There's so many people who would benefit from those accommodations. So actually you're helping everybody. And that's the same with neurodiversity. By helping neurodivergence to feel at ease and being able to work in teams in the right way, you're helping everybody.
Right. Right. So to recap, we've got this concept of neurodiversity, which is everybody. Everybody is in the world of neurodiversity. Some people are neurotypical and some people are neurodivergent. Is that a good way to? Okay, great. Thank you. So tech leaders. We're talking to tech leaders on this podcast. We're trying to help tech leaders learn how to and be encouraged and inspired to help their teams to flourish. Now, I can, speaking from personal experience, I have sometimes in the past struggled to flourish as a human being because I was expected to work a certain way. And of course, I needed to get results out. And really in my past, I haven't had too much of a problem getting results and meeting expectations. But there have been times when my car wanted to go off on the tracks over here, and it was just maybe a little bit too much friction for some other people, maybe even my leaders. And so I'm actually thinking about the tech leaders and how can tech leaders help these neurodivergent team members to flourish. So, but I'm assuming right now that tech leaders might not know that they have neurodivergent team members on their team in the first place.
There's a high chance they don't know. If they do know, I will say they're lucky because they have information to work with. But if you are a tech leader and you're listening and you're saying, hey, it's not relevant for me, I would say take a step back, think how many people are reporting to you. I just told you 15 to 20% of the world population is neurodivergent. Do you have more than 5 people in the team? Statistically, there is a high chance you have somebody. At first, it might be that people are not telling it to you, but that's not only that. It could be that people themselves don't know that they're neurodivergent because it's not something everybody knows. It's not something you can always see. So you always need to keep it in mind that there's information people are not obliged to disclose to you, and there's information they might not know themselves. So you need to be extra careful based on the statistics I was giving and think, hey, how do I help everybody, no matter if they are neurodivergent or not? So how do I help basically a very diverse team with different things they might need to flourish? And why is it important? Because ultimately you want every team member to succeed. You want them to be high performing. And if they're not performing, what works for one person might not work for the other person. And now you will say every person is unique and individual, but there are certain things people try for neurotypicals and that usually works great. And for neurodivergence, it might be actually even worse. And then you're like, well, they're just a bad performer. No, maybe the things you're trying to help them actually are making the situation much worse and you should do something else.
Yeah. It just sparked an idea. Your percentage of 15 to 20% of the world's population is neurodivergent. I'm just wondering if neurodivergent people tend to gravitate to tech jobs like this, like I have, because I've looked around at my colleagues for years and I see creatives, musicians, artists working with me in tech. And I know that I'm also assuming that a lot of those people, a lot of those professions or creative bents are something that flow freely out of neurodivergent people. So just inform me there. I'm thinking maybe the percentage is higher.
I think it is higher based on what I'm seeing around, but we both live in a tech bubble, so that's what we usually see. Funny thing is, I was reading the report of the Dutch Autism Society, and actually they say amount of people with autism who work in hospitals and in helping other people is actually very high as well. And that's an industry I wouldn't have thought of. Neurodivergents are everywhere, but I think there are certain places and industries where they're more accepted than others and where they can use their talents much more than others.
Yeah. Well, for me, I can tell that my own flavor of neurodivergence has helped me to thrive in tech because tech is constantly changing. And I thrive on learning new things and diving into new things. If I had to be a factory worker and move a box from one place to the next all day, I would go crazy. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't work there. But as a tech person, my career feeds my soul.
And I think we should also realize that it might not even work in industries where you don't think of. Like, I know a very, very good UX writer who is dyslexic, and you would think, how can that work too? But that's possible. If people really put their best efforts and if that's a career made for them, then neurodiversity is not going to stand in the way. You'll just use it in the right way to help you instead of stopping you.
Yeah. So what do you think tech leaders often overlook when working with their teams?
I'm making assumptions, and I'm very sorry if I offend anybody, but I think that people often think this solution will work for everybody, and it will not. What works for person A will not work for person B. So assuming that solutions work for everybody is thing number one. Number two, assuming you don't have neurodivergence because nobody told you and everybody seems normal, so to say. And now basically I have told that two are assumptions, and I'm sure that the rest pretty much goes to making assumptions instead of asking people.
How can tech leaders find out if their team members are neurodivergent? Is it okay just to ask them, or is it okay to put out a net and just ask people? I mean, like, how do they find out?
Somebody asked me that the other week, and I was like, would you ask somebody what's their sexual orientation at work? No, you wouldn't. Would you ask somebody their other medical history? No, you wouldn't. So don't ask if they're neurodivergent unless they disclose, but ask what do they struggle with? Ask what accommodations they need. Ask how can you as a leader help them to be the best persons they are? And that's a much open question where you can say loads of things. So, for example, I usually work in the office, and there are certain places in the office I can be more productive than others. Like, if you put me in a corner where I can see the room, I'm going to be more comfortable. I can be myself there because I don't need to look if somebody's passing by my shoulder, if there's some surprise person passing by. And I know loads of other people who are more comfortable sitting next to a wall. But I also know people who need to be in the middle of things happen so they can be more efficient, who need to have 5 things at the same time because they are more productive when working on several topics at the same time. So don't make assumptions. Ask them, what do you need to be the best person you can be, the best version of yourself? Not everybody knows it, but usually you have a good idea where to start.
That's good. And just if you're in an office situation, just allowing somebody to sit over there in the corner with their back to the wall costs nothing. And it's something that a leader can do or allow, just help that person to thrive.
It depends how many corners do you have. A few months ago, we needed to reshuffle where we're sitting because my team was getting bigger and I was trying to make everybody happy. So many people wanted to sit next to the wall. I needed to ask, why do you want to sit next to the wall? And there are different reasons. Somebody didn't want that somebody else looks at their screen. Somebody needed physical wall. Somebody just didn't want to hear other people. So it's not about the wall, but it's about the sound. So it's not only getting the answers, but also asking further to really understand what that person needs.
Right. And it's not always about the wall or the corner or making accommodations that are just like your position in the room. It could be all kinds of things that can help somebody to flourish. And I can hear somebody right now in the audience saying right now, well, those are just very like frivolous. Like, why would we make all of those little accommodations? Why can't these adults just be adults? And so I want to ask, I mean, obviously that kind of question is coming from a very biased, and I don't know if that's neurotypical direction, but just a very biased direction. Maybe they don't understand what people are going through or the benefits that could come from helping a neurodivergent person on your team to be themselves and to flourish. You probably want to respond to some of that anyway, because I saw your face, but I also want to get into like, what are the benefits?
I'm thinking of the time when I was in school. I'm left-handed and I am the first person in my family being left-handed. And I grew up in times when left-handed was not really a thing. Everybody's supposed to write with the right hand. That's how you do it.
Oh man, talk about a world built for not you.
I'm not gonna get there. And I was lucky enough to have parents who said, no, she's left-handed, she will stay left-handed. We're not gonna force somebody to write with right hand, because what are the benefits? Like zero. Exactly zero. Sometimes my hand gets dirty if I use the wrong pen. That's pretty much the only benefit I can think. What happens if you force me to write with the right hand? It takes time to adapt. I write slower. Well, actually, I cannot write with right hand, but it would take me forever to learn it. My brain would be exploding because I'm supposed to do something my brain is not made in. Instead of letting me write with left hand, I can write super fast. I can write the content you need, and actually you need the results of my work. How do I achieve it? That shouldn't be so important as long as I'm delivering what you want me to deliver. Did that kind of answer to your question?
Yeah, it does. My goodness. That is a slam dunk explanation. And man, right when you started talking about left-handedness, it just flooded in the understanding of how almost in a way hand-tied people can feel when they are expected to work in a certain way that is different from how their brain wants to work.
And if you think about it nowadays, saying I'm left-handed, at least in the Western world, is not a problem. Loads of people are left-handed.
Yeah.
You often feel proud of being left-handed. You have no issues writing, especially now when we have computers. That's not an issue. 40 years ago, very different story. And I hope that's what's happening with neurodiversity. The more we talk about it, the more accommodations we make, the more we stabilize and normalize it for our children and grandchildren. That will not be a conversation. That will be just like, I have this and I have that and I need this and I need that. And it will be normal.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to feed off of this example of the left-handed author, writer, journalist. If you had been forced to use your right hand to be a journalist and you had been hired into this job and somebody's paying you this full-time salary and they're expecting certain results from you, they would not get the results that they need from you by forcing you to write with your right hand. I feel the same way about my own difference. When I'm working, I'm looking for some other examples of this too. So you may have some other examples, but if I had not been allowed to take a walk every now and then between Trello cards as I'm working on things or between pull requests, if I had not been allowed to take some work on my own and take ownership of it instead of having to work as so tied to a team constantly, if I hadn't been able to do some of those things, I would not have been nearly as productive. But once I am allowed to work maybe on the hours that my brain works the best or in the way that I work the best, I find, and I'm old, like I'm 46 now, I'm old compared to most of the developers out there. And I've been in tech leadership for a while, so I'm barely a developer anymore, but I can still run circles around most developers that I meet, because once I get into the way my brain works, once I start working the way my brain wants to work, I can just run circles around people. And it's not, I don't think that's because I'm a better developer. I think it's just that the way God created my brain it's how I'm wired. And I am, I just have the ability to lock in. On the other hand, there might be an entire day when I'm not productive at all because I'm not into it, or maybe I've been kind of fed down the wrong road. Yeah. What else are you feeling? Do you feel like there are other examples of how, like I keep on going back to your left-handedness, like if you're allowed, it's like unbridling a horse and setting them free and they're going to run and run.
I'm also thinking of real life examples of accommodations which would help neurodivergence and pretty much everybody. Think of job interview. You come to a job interview and you're being asked a technical question. You know the answer, but your brain freezes because it's people you have never met before. You need to switch context from walking to the interview, getting to understand the stack they're using, and you don't have those 5 minutes you might need because usually you have 5 seconds to answer. And you say, I don't know, or you say nothing, and then they ask you another question. You still don't know answer because you don't have those 5 minutes, and they think, what is that stupid developer? Why are we inviting him? Actually, you know the answers, but you didn't have time to prepare. So why don't you get questions in advance? You have time to prepare, and you come and then they ask you deepened questions on the information. So it's not like somebody fed you with information, but you really had time to prepare, to be at ease, and don't need to rush. Hey, you only have those 5-10 seconds and jump into. That's one thing I can think of. Another, meetings. We all know we have loads of meetings. Why don't we share agenda in advance, even if it's an internal meeting? You usually know what you want to discuss. You know what's the goal of it. Share the agenda. Ask people, I want to discuss this and that. Please prepare it. Please come with your arguments. Instead of saying, hey, there is this 5-page document. I give you 5 minutes. You read it and then you have an opinion. We might not have an opinion. We might not be able to read within 5 minutes. Why don't you prepare in advance? Less known example, for example, people with ADHD often have what we call time blindness. It's not for everybody, but a lot of people have trouble being there at a certain time. If you have a meeting and people are often late, are those 2 minutes really so important to tell them, hey, your salary will decrease, you have a warning or something else, or you just adapt your way of working so they don't feel punished for something actually their brain cannot control? And I'm not making excuses of people who are late. I know it's frustrating. I hate being late. I also don't have time blindness, but I understand that it's out of control for some people. So be a bit more understanding and accommodating instead of saying, oh no, you again. That's not really going to lead to positive team atmosphere, will it?
I do have time blindness, but in the course of my life, and as an engineer-minded person, have always, and early on I didn't know why, but I have always built systems around myself to automate things that I couldn't do for myself. So I don't know, somehow I detected early on that I couldn't keep track of time, and so I got into routines and made up rules for myself to make sure that I was, and now I am almost never late to anything. One of my rules is I go early, like sometimes hours early. Like if I'm going to meet somebody in another city for coffee, I'll drive there in the morning and I'll be there in the place the entire time so that I don't have to keep track of when they're going to show up. They just show up and I'm like, oh, there you are. I'll do the same thing in Google Meets and Zooms. I'll show up out like an hour early just so that I don't miss the start of the meeting.
I used to work with a colleague who had time blindness. I didn't know it's a word back then. And she was always late or not aware that she has a meeting or forgot that she's a meeting. And she didn't want it. So we started to pair up. I was like, we worked in the same team. So I would be like, after this amount of minutes, we need to go there. Hey, let's go there together, physically working.
That's
and
powerful.
Instead, I can be very... communication is not always my strongest point, so to say. And I don't read room always very well. And she would be there helping to tell me, hey, maybe you said something you shouldn't have said. So we would help each other flourish in where we are good at so the other person can get good at. So pairing up and helping each other can be very powerful as well.
So you're actually getting to something that I was curious about. In your experience there with that friend, you found a way to help her and she helped you. Not everybody is that willing or ready or aware of opportunities to help each other. And I think that the opposite can actually happen sometimes. Sometimes neurodivergent people rub other people on the team the wrong way, or they get a bad reputation. Maybe they're not as socially aware and they're seen as rude, or they're late, or whatever, or they mysteriously need a few minutes to go and decompress in a dark room somewhere. And that's me. What might happen if tech leaders don't invest in their neurodivergent team members and the effect that it might have on the other team members or the team as a whole? Like the productivity in the team as a whole is likely to be less.
Oh, Jesus. People can leave. That's easy. They find a place where they can be themselves. People can go on a burnout leave, and at least in Europe, that's super expensive for you as a company. You don't want it. You want to avoid people going on burnout, apart from the fact that it's super bad for their mental health. It can get toxic. People can start mistrusting each other, seeing the worst in each other, and the productivity will go down because you spend so much time talking with or about each other instead of working that there's nothing to deliver because you're busy solving people problems.
Yeah. Yeah. The benefits of investing in your neurodivergent team members are clear. I think that tech leaders, especially after hearing this episode, are going to be looking around, trying to find ways to help people to flourish, no matter where they fit on the neurodiversity scale. So let's help them. Let's give them some practical tips. What are some things that tech leaders can do to help neurodivergent team members, especially to flourish on their
Number
teams?
1, don't make assumptions. Number 2, if you do make assumptions because you are a human being, make positive assumptions. Nobody woke up today, I would hope, and decided I will be a terrible employee and I will slack today. That's not how it works. People come to work because they want to work. They want to deliver. If it doesn't work out, think of positive intentions. What was behind? What did they try to do? What went wrong? And how can I help them to get back on track? By changing your mindset of understanding positive intentions, you will be in a better place to have a positive conversation by really understanding them and then finding out how you can help them. Ask them questions. Sometimes they know what helps them, sometimes they don't. Ask open questions and really try to understand, hey, what's happening with that person? What do they need? And what works for one person who is neurodivergent might not work for another person, even if they have the same diagnosis. Right. So don't assume that what worked for A will work for B. Try different things. Ask them if that would work for them. And just try seeing the best in everybody. Be a human being. That sounds so blunt and so simple, but we often don't do it.
Yeah. And then I just asked you for some specific, like some practical examples, but if there's just one thing a tech leader should do tomorrow to improve their team state, to improve team flourishing, what would it be?
Go to the team and ask, what are you missing? What do I need to give you or to do so you can work better? And then do it.
It's powerful. That's powerful.
It's simple.
Yeah. So let's do it. Yeah. Let's go right now. Why wait until tomorrow? Just go right now and let's go and ask our team. In fact, I'm going to do that after I get off this recording session with you, Anita. I'm going to go do that. You've inspired me.
There's one thing you shouldn't do. Don't diagnose people unless you are a medical professional. And now you will be super, super inclined to go to your team and think, hey, this person has dyslexia, this person has autism, or I see signs of ADHD. Please don't do it. Think of what are they missing and what are they struggling with and work on that.
It's good advice. All right, Anita, how can listeners connect with you?
So you will get my LinkedIn and the information. You're welcome to connect, but please add a note if you have listened to this podcast. I get LinkedIn invitations random. I reject all of them unless there is a note. Because why do you want to connect? Do you just want to build up your LinkedIn followers? I don't know. I don't really care. If we have a meaningful kind of conversation, please do a good opener and let's see how we can help each other.
Awesome. I can vouch for Anita. This has been, and every conversation I've had with Anita so far has been a really great one. If you need or want to have that kind of conversation with Anita, then surely you should connect. Anita, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. We're at the end of our time, but I just want to thank you so much for being with us. This might be a world-shaking episode, and I'm so excited to see
Thanks for having me, and enjoy the rest of the episodes.
This has been another episode of the Team Amplifier podcast. Thanks for joining us. Now, get out there and be a team amplifier.